Welcome back to another episode of The Canon. I'm your host, Terry, and today we're doing the top 10, not top 5, top 10 list of callbacks in Avengers Endgame. So, spoilers, of course, if you didn't see it, don't listen, because we're going to spoil some things. And also, I would not be the grown kid that I am if I did not shout out and recognize I have 69 subscribers. But anyway, sorry. Let's go to number 10. We got Clint. Hand it to me. Black Panther, calling out Clint to Hawkeye when he needed Hawkeye to throw him the, gauntlet in the middle of the fight. Now, me personally, I don't think I didn't really care that much. And I'm not even 100% sure it's a callback, but everybody I listen to has brought this up. So apparently it tickled a lot of people. So I would be remiss to leave it off my list. Cause it's a callback to Civil War when, Hawkeye's like, yeah, I don't think we met yet. I'm Clint. And Black Panther's like, I don't care. And then he yells Clint when they're in the middle of the fight. Now, I really didn't care about this, or I didn't really latch on to it until I remembered that Hawkeye wasn't in Infinity War. So he hasn't saw T'Challa since T'Challa became part of their team. So, it's a possibility. All right. Number 9, we got from Civil War as well, Queens. When Captain America fights Spider-Man in Civil War for a little bit, he's like, you got heart, kid, where you from? And he says Queens, and Captain America's like, I'm from Brooklyn, excuse me. So then when they're tossing the Infinity Gauntlet around in Endgame, or the Iron Man Gauntlet, Spider-Man's running around trying to, escape everything, and Cap throws Mjolnir in the air and yells Queens, and so Spider-Man jumps up and, webs Mjolnir and flies on it, kinda. So, pretty much just a throwback to him saying, hey, that's Queens. And again, Spider-Man hasn't saw Cap since that interaction, so it makes sense. Number 8, we got the elevator scene, which really, it didn't turn into much. I think a lot of people like the Hell Hydra, and that was more fan service. That's not a callback to anything. Besides them being Hydra, but we already knew that. So it was a callback to Captain America the Winter Soldier, where the infamous or famous, I don't know, I love it, the elevator scene in which he gets in and everybody's trying to jump Cap, and Cap knows. Cap's like, before we start, does anybody want to get out? And I thought that's what they were going to say. Like, a lot of this stuff felt kind of eye-rolly to me with the callbacks. But if they would have did that one, I would have got hyped because it led to one of the greatest fight scenes. So I thought it was about to go down as a fight, but instead he does the Hell Hydra and gets out of there, but then fights himself. So they made up for it. But that was a nod back to him being trapped in an elevator with those same guys. And I watched Winter Soldier recently. Those are a lot of the same actors from Winter Soldier. So it was a nice callback there. Number 7. And this is so small, but when they're back in the Battle of New York and, Iron Man and Thor taking Loki out, and Robert Redford's character stops him like, hey, give us Loki, give us, the Tesseract, they come up and they're like, where are you going? And Thor is like, we're going to get some lunch, and then now I'm going to take Loki back to Asgard. And that going to get some lunch is a nod to the very famous Shawarma scene that, was the end credit scene for Avengers that they shot, I want to say after the premiere or something like that, and added it before it was wide release. So, that famous end credit scene where the Avengers just sitting around eating, that was a nod to that saying, we're going to go get some lunch. Number 6, we got Insta Kill. So in Spider-Man, Homecoming, you had the new Tony Spider suit, or, not the, Iron Spider suit, but he got his suit from Tony. And there was the Insta Kill mode. That was a joke and we never really got to see it. But then in battle, when Spider-Man is running around with the gauntlet, he activates insta-kill mode to fight off some of the Thanos army, and it goes crazy and starts killing everybody with the iron spider arm. So a lot of people found that I thought it was cool. I didn't think about it till later again, like, oh yeah, we didn't actually see insta-kill mode. So it was kind of funny to see that. Number 5, this goes by quickly too, but back at the Battle of New York, when they're getting ready to take Loki out, Loki transforms or shapeshifts to Captain America to make fun of him. And then they put that device on his mouth so he could be quiet. And so that was a callback to 2 things. It was number 1, a callback to Thor: The Dark World, where Loki had transformed to Cap to mock him, when he was talking with Thor. And so that was just kind of a callback to that as well. But that was a cool moment in Thor: The Dark World because people didn't expect to see Chris Evans pop up. But then it's also a callback to, like, a lot of people was making fun of a Loki, calling him Gay Bane and stuff, and like making fun of that mouth device. Like, it was so random. Why did he have that? And so then they kind of just, did a callback to say, he was talking too much, and so they put that thing on his mouth. So I thought it was funny, and I thought it was a deep cut, cause Thor: The Dark World, the whole scene of his mom and, Asgard is from Thor: The Dark World, but that's not a movie a lot of people like. So kind of a deep cut, throwback to me. Number 4, at the beginning of Endgame, when they go and Thor kills Thanos, they're like, what'd you do? Thor's like, I went for the head. So a callback, of course, to Infinity War. A lot of people complain that he didn't aim for the head. Of course, Thanos himself saying you should have went for the head. So a nice callback to that, but I have it so high because it was not like a funny, like, hey, some people laugh, but to me it was more sad. And I talked about this in my favorite scenes, but that just really cemented the loss for the Avengers, and that cemented Thor's defeat as his legacy and led to him kind of letting himself go. So then number 3, and also one of my favorite scenes, when Tony comes back from space and they're asking him questions about Thanos, and he kind of goes off on Cap. He's delusional, he's dehydrated, he's upset, he's angry, all this stuff, and he's going off on Cap. One of the things he says is that he's like, you said if we lose, we'll lose together. He said, well, we lost. And that's a throwback to Avengers Age of Ultron, when Thor kind of choked up Tony, and everybody's kind of mad at Tony because he created Ultron. But Tony was like, yeah, I'm trying to put a suit of armor around the world. And then, I want to say it was Age of Ultron. Y'all feel free to correct me. But I believe it was that moment when he was like, we'll lose. And he said, we'll do that together too. Or maybe that was the first Avengers. I don't know. Now I'm confused actually. But, we'll lose together. I'm pretty sure that's Age of Ultron. I don't know. But yeah, that's a callback to that. Where, one of the best lines, by the way, in the MCU, we'll lose, we'll do that together too. So I love that one. And then number 2, which is probably a lot of people's number 1, is I Am Iron Man. And that's before Tony does the snap that kills him and also gets rid of Thanos and his army. Of course, the callback to the very first movie of the MCU, Iron Man, in which, Tony reveals that he's Iron Man at the very end of the movie. Some people say an iconic line. I guess one of the reasons that number 2 is just like, it's not that iconic to me as far as comic book movies go, but it is, as far as the MCU goes, an important thing, and it's definitely a last movie to first movie tie, so it ranks up there in importance. And then number 1, to me, which is one of my favorite scenes as well, is cheeseburgers. And so that scene made my top 5 scenes, but when you got Happy Hogan sitting with Morgan Stark, and they're at the funeral, and he's like, "You hungry?" She's like, "Yeah." He's like, "What do you want?" She says, "Cheeseburgers." Hogan has that really heartfelt pause, and he's like, "Your dad liked cheeseburgers," which is a callback to the first Iron Man again, in which he was, when he got back from wherever the Middle East he was, he said, "What do you want?" He said, "I want an American cheeseburger," all that. So great callback, especially from Jon Favreau, who was a director of Iron Man, who brought Robert Downey Jr. and really shepherded in the MCU. So one of the best callbacks to me, and it was the best because it was in a great, amazing scene as well. So anyway, that's my list. Go down the comment section. Let me know what you think of my list. Also, give me your top 10 callbacks. There's a whole bunch of them in the movie. Share it around, get the convo started. Thumbs up, subscribe, and if you heard it here, it's official canon.